Okay, so is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Okay, so we were learning about cryptography, and we were going through a paper. We found about continuous variable QKD. So when we went through it, we found out that it's a completely different regime. So today, what we are going to discuss is basically the what is actually continuous variable, what are continuous variable quantum systems. So and I will just briefly discuss in the end like how QKD happens in continuous variable, but I will just mention it like that. But we were planning that in the next session we will go deeper into how QKD is implemented using this. So today we will just talk about what are actually continuous variable systems and how are they different from discrete variable systems. So so this is also very rapidly uh, uh, increasing research on this. So I think okay, let's start then. Uh, so basically, quantum information comes in two forms: discrete and continuous. So discrete, we all know about the discrete part. So where we use qubits, the qubits are actually discrete. They have a finite Hilbert space, finite dimensional Hilbert space. So examples like when we use spin of electrons, or we use semiconductor quantum dots, or superconducting circuits which are quantized, or even the polarization of a photon. So we try to encode our information using qubits. So qubits are the basic uh, element of a discrete variable quantum information system. Uh, so what is continuous variable system? A continuous variable system is basically where it covers an infinite dimensional Hilbert space. So instead of having discrete values, it can have continuous values. So this can also lead to a computer which can do actually floating point operations. So it will not give you values like 0, 1, 1, 0, 2, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1 something in a binary. It can actually give you values like 3.14. So examples of continuous variable systems include modes of bosonic systems, like different degrees of freedom of electromagnetic field, vibrational modes of solids, nuclear spins in a quantum dot, etc. Uh, so best example is the quantized harmonic oscillator. So whoever uh, uh, studying quantum mechanics should know about the quantum harmonic oscillator. So where if we consider potential when the energy states are created which are evenly separated, and we have two operators called the annihilation operators. So the annihilation operators take you from one state to the other, and the destruction operator, annihilation will take you from top to bottom, and the other one will take you above. So, uh, so basically, that's how we use to model our systems. So the most elementary is the bosonic harmonic oscillator, and we have the operators, annihilation operators there. And from those, we create something called the quadrature operators, which are analogous to position and momentum. So X is for position, P is for momentum. So it's just a combination of A and A dagger. So X is the summation, and P is the difference between those. And according to the uncertainty principle, they follow the commutative relation. So that is that they are not commutative, and this is the basically this says that there will be always an uncertainty in between X and P, and you cannot measure both of them at the same time. And if you do, you will have some uncertainty. So, as I said, the quadrature field operators act like the position and momentum operators of the quantum harmonic oscillator. So, just like we have qubits in discrete variable system, in continuous variable systems, we have something called Q modes. So the Q modes are the fundamental information carrying units in CV quantum computers. So you can actually picture. So when we say modes in the harmonic oscillator, just try to remember when we were in our 11th or 12th, when we were talking about sound waves or light waves, we talked about modes in the waves. So these are the modes that, so since if you think about light is basically an electromagnetic wave. So and photons are basically excitations of the electromagnetic field. So we can picture a single mode as a single wire in the quantum circuit. So also one more thing, like the continuous variable quantum computers also follow the gate model. So here also we have states, we have gates, and we have measurement. So also one more thing is that continuous variable systems can solve all the whatever a discrete variable system can do. Same thing the continuous variable system can also do. So it covers all the BQP problems basically. So that way there is not much difference, but implementation wise there is. So by combining multiple modes and interacting in them with them, we can implement a general computation like with using quantum gates. So if you try to draw an analogy with discrete variable systems, it is quite similar. Uh, then why we need CV systems? So in continuous variable systems, you can actually use photons to build a quantum computer, and that can actually work at room temperature. So Xanadu is building a photonic chip using the CV model, and their chip can run on room temperature. So and if you know about the other DV systems, all of them required a lot of very low temperatures, and they need some cryogenic refrigerators to keep that temperature, to maintain that temperature. So here, can someone mute? Yeah, so in this, the advantage that continuous variable systems give us is basically when we are using photons, we can actually work at room temperature. So, but still there is, when I was going through Xanadu's documentation, they mentioned that their chip or their Q modes can work at room temperature, but there is still one component that requires uh, low temperature, that is a detector, which is basically to measure. And that can actually be so because there is some technology gap, so they have to use that, and they are working on removing that dependency also. So this is one uh, field which is very which is very promising. So we can have actually quantum computers which are working on room temperatures. So another advantage is a Q mode can theoretically carry more information than a qubit, and the CV systems don't get affected by noise. That's why they can work on room temperatures. But there's a catch that photon losses happen that need to be taken care of. So basically, this is based on how accurate our devices are. So there will be some losses. So see, we have some advantages here and disadvantages here also. So and in if you look at it in from the QKD purpose, like from the point of view, the advantages of CVQKD are like it is more efficient. There is high key rate generation and cost-effective detection using the receivers, as opposed to single photon counters. So in discrete variable, you have to have single photon counters. Instead, you can use CVQKD where using the homodyne receivers is more cost effective and better. Uh, so this picture is a text visible, or should I? Okay, so here, so these all these pictures and everything, some content I have taken from Xanadu's Strawberry Fields website. They have given some good theoretical background for this. So, so you can also go there and read about it. So, when we compare continuous variable versus qubit, the basic elements, as I said, in continuous variable system are cube modes, and here we have qubits. Then we have relevant operators. Like in qubits, we have these XYZ polymatrices, poly operators. Similarly, we have here quadrature operators. Quadrature, whenever I say quadrature, it means the X and P, the position and momentum, and the mode operators. Mode operators basically traverse between the states, modes basically. So annihilation and destruction. So some common states, they like in qubits we have the 0 1 state, plus minus state, the plus minus I state. Similarly, we have the covariant states, squeeze states, and number states. So I will talk more on this later. Similar and with regards to gates, like we have the phase shift gate, X gate, Hadamard gate, CNOT gate. Similarly, in continuous variable systems, we have the rotation gate, displacement gate, squeezing gate, beam splitter, cubic phase, and more, and some more gates are there. Measurement wise also there's a difference, like where here we can have basis where we can measure like 0 1 plus minus I basis. So here we have homodyne basis which measures X or P, the heterodyne which measures both of them, and the photon counting which counts the number of photons. So coming to the CV states, so if you look at it in this way, like if you go to look at it mathematically, a qubit is basically a superposition of 0 and 1, whereas a q mode, since it's continuous, it will rather than a summation, it's an integration over all the possible states, and psi is the probability distribution of the wave function. So in CV states, we have two types of states, Gaussian states and number states. So Gaussian states basically follow a Gaussian probability distribution, and we represent them in a Wigner function. So the most important state is the one with zero photons, when there are no photons. That is called the vacuum state. Vacuum state, and it's represented as zero. So vacuum state is basically, it's called vacuum because there are no photons here, so there is nothing. So uh, we can represent. So there is something called a phase space representation. So in a phase space representation, we have x1 and x2. X1 and x2 are basically the x, the momentum, and the position operators. It's a form. It's just a form of them. So let's say this is x and this is p. So for a vacuum state, you will have a circle at the center. So basically it means that the phase is not defined. There's nothing here. So all the other states, all the other Gaussian states can be evolved using the vacuum state. So you apply some operator to the zero state and you can create a new state. You can come up to the new state. So so it says like so whenever this Hamiltonian edge is at most quadratic in the operators, x and p are called Gaussian. So quadratic as in you will have like a circular or an ellipse representation here. So yeah, so for a single Q mode, Gaussian states are parameterized by two continuous complex variables, displacement parameter and a squeezing parameter. So any other state, any other Gaussian state can be represented using alpha and a z. So alpha is the displacement parameter and z is the squeezing parameter. So basically, how much state is displaced from the center, and how much is it deformed or different from a circle or closer to a different ellipse. So I will come to squeezing states later. So so basically the squeezing parameter defines how much squeezing is happening. So, so this is an important statement, so that the Gaussian states are named Gaussian because we can identify each state through its displacement and squeezing parameters with the corresponding Gaussian distribution. So the displacement gives the center of the Gaussian, while the squeezing determines the variance and the rotation of the distribution. So, yeah, so that, like I said, the displacement will give you the center of the Gaussian, so how far it is from the center. And since, so whenever we are, if you want to be definite about both X and P, what you will have in a classical system is you will define uh, if you want to define x and p exactly, you will just have a point in this x1 and x2. But since there is some uncertainty, instead of a point, you will have a circle. So the center of the circle is defined by the displacement parameter, and the variation and the rotation of the distribution, the variance in the distribution is represented by the squeezing parameter. So what all states can we have? We have coherent states where there is no squeezing. We have squeeze states where there is no displacement. And then we have displaced squeeze states where we have some squeezing and some displacement. And X eigenstates, P eigenstates. So basically these are the eigenstates of the X and P operators. And the vacuum state where there is no displacement or no squeezing. So how are coherent states represented in a phase space representation? Uh, so basically, like I said, like if you want uh, in a classical system where x and p both can be measured, momentum and displacement both can be measured, you will have a point here. But since there are some uncertainties like delta x1 and delta x2, and so there will we will get a circle instead of a point. So this is the area where these two x1 and x2 can lie. So each will have a phase associated with it. The theta is the phase and r is the amplitude. So, or the displacement. So using these two parameters, we can come to any states. So another point is that there is no well-defined number of photons for a coherent state, and there is also a phase uncertainty because this angle, also this phi, can have a delta because it can be from here to here. So the next is the squeeze state. So what is a squeeze state? Is basically since there's an uncertainty relation between x1 and x2. So like here, the x2 delta x2 is half, delta x1 is half. So the uncertainty relation binds x1 and x2 like this. So the value cannot be less than this. So there is a bound. So there's a limitation. But what we can actually do is since now we are taking having equal uncertainty, what we can do is reduce the uncertainty in one variable and increase the uncertainty in the other. So the area delta x1 into delta x2 remains constant, but instead what we can do is we can reduce the uncertainty in one of the variables. So, but it increases the uncertainty in the other variable. Uh, the other type of states are called the number states. So number states are basically um, you can draw an analogy like counting the number of photons. So these states are actually discrete. So you can actually take go from Gaussian states to when you go in this basis, you can actually come to a discrete distribution. So there's a number operator defined which is a dagger into a, and it counts the number of excitations in a mode, and therefore its eigenvalues give the number of excitations, that is photons in the mode. So as I told that photons are basically excitations in the electromagnetic field. So this it's also called the Fock states. So Fock states actually represent the number of photons in that Q mode basically. So so similarly, like we were representing a vacuum state, for a Fock state, the radius of this circle will be n plus half. So for a vacuum state, n will be 0. So as I mentioned, the circle is the radius is well defined, but the face is completely undefined. And for the vacuum state, the circle is with a radius of 1 by root 2. Now coming to the, now that we have discussed about the states, we will discuss about the gates. So as it was mentioned here, for going from one state to another, from vacuum state to any other state, you need to apply some e to the power minus ith. So which is basically a unitary. So this is basically a unitary operation that can be associated, and it can be written in the form e power minus ith. So there are two types of, a universal gate set in continuous variable systems contains two components, Gaussian gates and non-Gaussian non-Gaussian gates. So Gaussian gates, what they do is basically they will transition from one Gaussian state to another Gaussian state. So examples are like the displacement gate, rotation gate, squeezing gate, or the beam splitter gates. So there can be like in discrete variable systems, we have a single qubit gate and two qubit gates. So similarly, like two qubit gates like the CNOT. Similarly, we have beam splitter gates, which are the two mode gates basically. So, a non-Gaussian states is a higher order gate, which actually converts a state to a non-Gaussian state. So these are some representations of gates, some examples of gates and their respective unitaries. We don't need to get into the mathematics of it. So I will talk about the displacement and squeezing gate again. So displacement gate, what it will do is it will have a operator like a D. So the vacuum state, as I mentioned, is at the center, and it has some radius. So when we apply some displacement, the center will shift. This circle basically shifts to another position, we can generate a coherent state. So displacement operators are basically used to generate coherent states. Then in squeezing, we have a squeezing operator, which does the same transition from a vacuum state to a squeeze state. So here is a GIF showing, so this is when it starts, this is a vacuum state, and this is basically squeezing happening on that state. So the probability distribution of the Gaussian is changing. Uh, then when talking about measurement, uh, like in discrete variable systems, we have three types of measurements here: homodyne measurement, heterodyne measurement, and photon counting. So homodyne measurement is basically measuring either X or P. So it's like a projective measurement onto the eigenstates of the operator X or P. So these four states are continuous. So the measurements are also inherently continuous, and they return values X belonging to a real. So basically it will give you a real number. Heterodyne measurements are like homodyne measurements, but they can actually, they do what they do is they measure, do a simultaneous measurement of both X and P. So but these since we know that X and P do not commute, they cannot be simultaneously measured, and they produce some degree of uncertainty in the measurements. The next one is photon counting, and it is different from both heterodyne and homodyne measurements. So basically, they reveal the particle-like or nature of the Q modes. So this measurement projects the eigenstates of the n state, basically the number states, and return non-negative integer values. So basically, the number of photons in that mode. So let's do one thing. I will show you an example implementation kind of thing here. So if you go to the website of Strawberry Fields, they have a simulator which can actually uh, which uses continuous variable system. So here the wires that you see are not actually qubits, but these are Q modes. So and these are the one mode gates like the squeezing, displacement, position displacement, etc. Two mode gates, a CA controlled addition, beam splitter, two mode squeezing, and the measurements that you were talking about: photon counting, homodyne P, and the heterodyne. So let's just do one thing, let me just show you. So the probability distribution is shown through a Wigner function. So you can read about a Wigner function somewhere. So like now all are in the vacuum states, all the three modes. So you can actually see each mode differently, but all are same right now. So if you look at it, it's a circle which is at the center, right? So right now nothing is happening. It's a vacuum state. So now let's do one thing. Let's try to add a squeezing, add some squeezing to the first node. So when we do that, we have to give it some parameters. Let me just give it like 0.5, 0.5 and go. Okay. So now if you look at the distribution, it has changed. Instead of a circle, now we can see an ellipse here. So now this is, we have got a squeeze state. Okay. So the next operation we try to do is a displacement. So when we add some displacement to it, we can add it in terms of a complex number. So let me just put one, go. Okay. So now if you look at the distribution, it has shifted from the center. The center has actually been displaced to another position and the distribution has changed. Now let's do one more example. Uh, a rotation. So let's rotate it by it is by. Okay, so if you notice, it has, from this location, it has rotated to this location and the position has changed. So this is a rotation gate basically. Now we will try to add a beam splitter. So before this state, if you look at the mode one, okay. So mode one is still unaffected. It's still a vacuum state, right? Whereas mode zero, we have applied some gates to it. So now let's do one thing like add a beam splitter here. So beam splitter is basically used to create entanglement. So here also we will give it some values, 0.5. Okay. So mode 0 remains unaffected, and if you look at mode 1, it has inherited some of the displacement and rotation properties of mode 0, and now they are correlated. So they are kind of entangled. So this is some basic example of how continuous variable systems work. And if you go to the algorithm section, you can actually see the teleportation protocol being implemented using continuous variable systems. So here what is happening is there's alpha state which Alice wants to send to Bob. And like in the discrete variable teleportation protocol, what they will do is they will have two more qubits and they will entangle them and do some operations on the second one, do some measurements, and similarly a teleportation happens from so this state is actually destroyed, but this state actually gets copied to this state. So similarly, if you look at the circuit in a discrete variable systems, it is quite similar. So so this is basically example of a circuit which uh, teleports. So the beam splitters are used for the entanglement part. So in discrete variable also we will use two CNOT gates to create Bell states. So similarly, these beam splitters also are used to create the Bell states. So so this teleportation protocol works. Circuit looks like this. Uh, Coming back, so if you also in this website, if you come to the Strawberry Fields website, you can actually have a read at the theory. It is quite good. They have explained it quite nicely. So you can actually come here and look at all the things. So also I wanted to show you the some of the visualizations. So for example, this one I already showed from a vacuum state, it's turning into a squeezing state. Similarly, in this one, it's a rotation gate is getting applied to a state, to a coherent state. Then a displacement, so where a displacement gate is getting applied. Now these are our examples of the Gaussian gates. So like as mentioned, cubic phase gate is a non-Gaussian gate. So what it will do is change the probability distribution from Gaussian to a non-Gaussian. Similarly, a care gate is also a non-Gaussian gate. So so these actually help to do some computations which are not practical to do in a classical computer. So basically, from my readings till now, there is still a lot to explore on this. Uh, uh, but I find that the possibility of having a quantum computer which can actually run on room temperature is quite promising, and the technology is also quite uh, uh, so like it's going quite in a good pace. So this is also something we should explore, both for a quantum computing perspective and also the QKD perspective. So how QKD happens here is basically instead of sending two bits which have been encoded by Alice, here Alice will send some coherent states to Bob, and like we had some prepare and measurement protocols. So Alice will prepare some coherent states and encode some information in the states, and Bob can measure it any of the do a homodyne measurement and measure in one of the quadratures, and then similarly they will share their basis and their data will be correlated. So that's some brief. Like we will talk about this more in more depth in the next session. Yeah, so that was my part. I think I went quickly. So if you have any questions, you can ask. Any questions?
Hi, Vaibhav.
Right?
Hello,
Yeah,
Vaibhav.
yeah, yeah. I can hear you.
Yeah, I have a question. In the continuous variable one, you just showed there are actually not there are only two bases. There are lot more bases are there.
Mhm.
So in the strawberry fields, the interactive view, you can see that they use some kind of cutoff dimensions. I mean the simulation type and the next window. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that one. So
yeah.
how this affects uh, the measurement? I mean, if I just take two dimension or I take 10 dimension because there are a lot more dimensions. Photons actually comes from infinite
So this
dimensional
is
single state.
basically, yeah. So this is basically for the fog basis, right? So let's see. If we do something in the fog basis, what we will get is about distribution. Sorry, fog states. So if you look at the fog states, so you will have probability distribution for like number of photons like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think since it can be infinite, right now we have put it to 5. So we are only seeing 5 states here, right? So I think like the probability of, so this is I think more like if we increase the dimensions, the later dimensions will have very less probability actually. So I think that gets neglected. It depends. I think it should depend upon what kind of problem we are trying to solve and how important it is. How important is the this cutoff for it? So I still need to read more about the measurement part actually. So I was also not quite clear about the measurement part of this. So yeah, that's how I think it should be problem specific.
Okay, okay, okay. I mean, is there a way to just get, for this example, actually, that's a teleportation example, and the state has to be transferred to Bob. So how can I be sure that my state has transferred? I mean, Alice's state has just transferred to Bob, just viewing the result. I mean, the
Okay,
graphical view.
if you follow this example, what you can do is basically remove all these gates, okay,
Yeah.
and just visualize what alpha is here in the Wigner function, okay,
Yeah.
and then implement the circuit, and we can see what the function is right now, how it looks right now, okay, and you can compare those two and see like if it's the same. So for example, now mode 2 is this. So this is what uh, this the first mode would have been
Yeah.
that has been transferred to mode 2. Okay, so before this protocol in the initial state, this mode would have been like a vacuum state. It will be just a cycle, but now it has
Hmm.
changed to what the first mode was. So that you can actually just check from the interactive, like just clear everything and just check.
Okay, thank you.
Hi Vaibhav. So great presentation.
Thank you.
So actually, so like right now, I think all of us are pretty familiar with the discrete variable quantum
Mhm.
systems.
Yeah.
So is there some easy way to convert? Let's say I have a circuit in discrete variable using poly gates and all.
Mhm.
So is there some utility by which maybe I can translate that circuit to the continuous variable format? Um,
I
I
don't know
mean,
if there is a direct mapping, but
mhm.
definitely I read about it that all everything that you can do in discrete variable you can also do in continuous
Uh,
variable.
uh,
So you can actually, I think for that we need to read more about how all these gates work, and so we have to figure it out. Or maybe there is a research paper which does that. So till now I
yeah,
don't
that's
know
the
about
way. There is a
anything
way.
that can convert from discrete to continuous, but yeah, maybe we can explore that part.
Okay.
Okay, there is a way that is called, I think, Jordan finger transformation. Like
Okay.
something
Okay.
like you can just read about it, and that basically
Can you please repeat the name? Jordan?
Jordan finger transformation.
Okay. Okay. Fine.
I mean, it's a way that can continuous variable circuit can be mapped to discrete variable one and the vice versa.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I read about the GKP scheme. I think. So GKP, even the Strawberry Fields website tells about GKP scheme. So is it something similar or?
I don't know much about the
Okay.
GKP.
Okay. Fine.
Sorry.
Can you spell it out? Like, I will also add it here.
Uh, which one? The GKP or?
The other transforming from one to another.
Okay, Jordan finger, Jordan,
Mhm.
Schwinger. If not F, S. S for Schrodinger.
S.
Schwinger.
Okay.
I think that's very similar to that.
Okay. Okay. Sure. We'll have a look.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, guys. So actually, this reading about this is actually quite difficult because there are not many resources available for where they have mentioned this continuous variable quantum information, and it's related a lot to quantum photonics and quantum optics. So some background is required there also. So yeah, if I made some mistakes, please feel free to correct or If you know some resources, please feel free to point out to the resources where we can read more about this.